I want to begin this video by saying that I don't believe Westernization is the problem or even a problem in the world of K-pop. Not necessarily. In a similar way that K-pop groups often completely abandon their original concept and sound in order to promote in Japan, so too do K-pop groups abandon their identity when promoting in the West. The floor underneath these groups' conceptual identities is completely dropped as they attempt to emulate what's popular in the industries they're promoting in. There's nothing really wrong with this, in my opinion, as it's been going on for as long as K-pop has existed. This is the nature of pop music. It's a business tactic, and K-pop is a business, right? From this, I suggest the inherent problem with most K-pop groups is just how much the Westernization process bleeds into the core identity of a group. Something as simple as including an English single as a part of a Korean album can seriously damage the reports K-pop fans have with the group's identity in subtle but very decisive ways. An English single like Moonlight Sunrise compromises the identity of Twice as we have known them. Or does it? I want to argue that the problem with Westernization is not Moonlight Sunrise, but rather the fact that it was a part of and ultimately eclipsed the Ready to Be album, the Korean release this song was attached to. In this video, I want to ask the question, is Westernization a problem in K-pop? Why do some groups like Twice and BTS suffer with this process so much, while others like Blackpink and NewJeans not as much? I'm going to focus on Twice for the majority of this video, as I believe the trajectory of their career is the easiest to observe and understand, while touching on other groups mentioned by comparison. What's going on with Westernization in K-pop? That's what I want to talk with you about today. Just from my observation, it seems pretty clear that JYP Entertainment never intended for Twice to be a global girl group, at least not in the way that they are today. None of the members are fluent in English, and compared to other groups at JYP Entertainment, English language lessons were seemingly never enforced as a part of their training and post-debut work. For the first 3 years of their career, the musical focus of Twice was centered around this cute, aegyo core aesthetic that really resonated with audiences across Asia, but not so much in the West. 2019 saw Twice eager to change the style of their sound, the members advocating for more of a chic image, yet still retaining the traditional Twice sound with the 2 standard releases that year, Fancy and Feel Special. Notably during 2019 as well, ITZY is introduced as JYP Entertainment's new girl group, a smaller 5-member group with members considerably more proficient in English. One of the members is fluent, while it's very obvious that English language was a strong priority during training for the other 4 members who are not fluent. All 5 members of ITZY are able to conduct themselves in English interviews without the need of a translator, something Twice isn't able to do. It seems pretty likely that ITZY was formed with the intention of capturing the global audiences that Twice was struggling to with their initial concept. It just so happened that both ITZY and Twice expanded into the same global territories at the same time throughout 2019. The subtle concept shift with Fancy and Feel Special ended up being exactly what Twice needed to become a major player on the global scale. By the end of 2019, Twice's Westernization effort was now poised for just as much success as ITZY's, which I believe is what officially started Twice's campaign in the West. The following year seems to add to this idea. The next release after Feel Special, More and More, was a demo song from Zara Larsson, who is a prominent Western artist and producer. This is the first time this has happened. Twice's previous title tracks were almost always made for them as a group. There has to be a reason JYP Entertainment is shopping out for English song demos this time, right? The other release that year, I Can't Stop Me, is consistently compared to Dua Lipa's song Physical, released earlier that same year. More and More and I Can't Stop Me also began the convention of Twice releasing English versions of their title tracks. Again, we can begin to connect the dots here. Twice is making several efforts to adopt the sound of Western pop music trends and is releasing English versions of songs for the first time in their career. The next release, Alcohol Free, the following year, adapted a Western bossa nova sound. Alcohol Free is an insane departure from Twice's sound and image, but honestly worked quite well. It was well received for the most part internationally and charted very well in Korea. But interestingly, after the release of Alcohol Free, we strangely get the 2 singles from Twice's third full album, The Feels and Scientist. Both songs revert back to Twice's signature sound, and Talk That Talk, the next release after that, did as well. My theory regarding these 2 releases is that Twice was gearing up to disband if any of the members decided not to renew their contracts in July of 2022. I still fully suspect Between 1 and 2 is titled so remarkably, and the reason why Talk That Talk is so signature to Twice's earlier sound is because this had the potential to be the very last release from them as a 9-member group. Obviously, that didn't happen, but I think that explains the sudden return to form with Formula of Love and Between 1 and 2. This was Twice preemptively gearing up to say goodbye if they had to. The following release, post-contract renewals, was Ready to Be, and we continue the Westernization efforts through the sound and style of the 2 series. singles, Twice continues to adopt a darker image. Moonlight Sunrise is another English language single that again feels very reminiscent of Dua Lipa's Sweetest Pie, and the Korean single Set Me Free continues Twice doubling down on the retro sound that began with I Can't Stop Me. Finally, we reach their latest comeback with Youth. The English single I Got You features a retro synth-pop sound, and One Spark, as the Korean title track, is a bit of an oddball in this campaign. One Spark is neither pandering to the West, nor is it necessarily marketing towards K-pop fans. It's a good song, there's just no apparent intention behind it. It suffers the same ambiguous lyrical content as Set Me Free, where the song is written in a way that it could be about anything or applied to any context, much to the song's detriment in the end. With Between 1 and 2 as the outlier due to the circumstances surrounding contract renewals, this seems to be the formula for Twice's Westernization effort. A darker image and sound that features an English language pre-release single, followed by a more K-pop focused title track that still sonically and visually attempts to pander to the West as well. Similar to BTS, in the eyes of the general K-pop fanbase, Twice's image has suffered immensely as a result of this effort. Between 1 and 2, poised as a potential disbandment album, unintentionally exacerbated this problem, as we now know Twice has the potential to maintain their characteristic style with a more refined and mature sound. Talk That Talk and Basics are exactly what onces and K-pop fans seem to be looking for out of a mature Twice. These aren't inherently cute songs, Basics certainly isn't, yet they open a territory for Twice to explore new sounds and styles while remaining in their original identity, image, and context. But is this too restrictive? Should we as fans even be talking or complaining about this, discouraging Twice from completely changing their sound and style for the Western marketplace again? And after all, we don't criticize them or any other K-pop group for doing the exact same thing in Japan. Here's what I think is actually going on. In the context of Twice, the English singles are not the inherent problem. Moonlight Sunrise is one of Twice's best releases in my opinion. The only problem I identify is its relationship to the Ready to Be album in retrospect. I've already spoken my piece about Set Me Free, the title track from this album, in another video, but this song's lack of lyrical intention is what I believe was its demise. Set Me Free is a remarkably vague love song that sounds like it was always meant to be about something more. A stronger self-empowerment anthem where Twice wants to be set free from the things that limit them. Twice fully could have taken on this concept, but would the Westernization effort have allowed it? The last two albums have again started releasing English versions of the title tracks, and while the lyrics aren't translated word for word, the same idea is captured by the end. It would be quite difficult for Twice to develop a meaningful message in Korean and to have that be translated then into English. It's not impossible, but it would definitely be easier to do what they did. An ambiguous song lyrically is obviously going to be a lot easier to translate compared to one with more serious intention behind it. And this is what I think is actually the problem here. This is what I mean when I say the Westernization process is bleeding a little too much into Twice's standard Korean releases, that the Korean title tracks are suffering as a result of needing to be translated into English. Of the last two album projects we've received from Twice, neither of the Korean title tracks are specific in what they're talking about, I believe for the sake of relatability and so the songs can be translated easily. But this is the problem. Twice's last two releases have been without any concept or intention to them, and from the way I see it, that is expressly the fault of JYP Entertainment's Westernization efforts. The last two releases don't really add anything to the Twice ethos because of their ambiguity, compared to the earlier releases like Alcohol Free and Talk That Talk, which are very specific in their messaging. We know what those songs are about, but do we know exactly what Set Me Free and One Spark are about? The messaging is kind of there, but a lot of guesswork has to be done. The songs are extremely open-ended, so in the end, they're essentially about nothing in particular. I can tell you exactly what Alcohol Free is about in 1 to 2 sentences, yet I can't do the same for One Spark. I can tell you I believe One Spark is a song about how Twice need each other as a group, how all it takes is one spark to set their passion to be a group together on fire, but I have to believe that. There's nothing I can point to lyrically that confirms this idea. This is it for me. The problem isn't Westernization outright, it's how much Westernization is eclipsing the identity and image of this group. Moonlight Sunrise is an incredible add to Twice's discography. It's not the problem. The Korean releases end up becoming more of a problem in retrospect. It seems like these albums are made just as kind of scaffolding for the pre-release English singles. Moonlight Sunrise and I Got You are outlandishly different from the albums they're a part of. They built up excitement for a new style and sound that was abandoned by the time we got to the actual album. Set Me Free and One Spark don't really add anything to the Twice ethos in retrospect because, again, those songs are ultimately about nothing, and intentionally so. It's Moonlight Sunrise and I Got You that are continuing Twice's story. The development of their identity in their last two albums has become entirely reliant on the content of their English releases. Those are the only two singles in the past 2 years we've gotten that have substance to them and contain a lyrical narrative with intention to them. We know what Moonlight Sunrise and I Got You are about. That's what I think our problem is here. Twice's Korean discography, the core of their identity, is being marred by Western Westernization efforts. So from my perspective, the problem isn't Westernization outright, it's how Westernization impacts the identity of a group. The same can be applied to a group like BTS, who I believe has suffered in a very similar way that Twice has with their English single run. I see so many fans complain about how BTS, quote, lost the plot during 2020 and 2021 because of their English promotions. For a lot of people, it became really hard to identify BTS's core identity as it kind of got lost in the noise of these radio-friendly English songs. In my opinion, this way to go about promoting in the West is way too risky. It's a viable option in the end, but has the potential to seriously damage the rapport these groups have with their core fan bases. I mentioned Blackpink earlier in this video and how I don't think they experience the same problems that BTS and Twice do. Blackpink's difference compared to them is that they don't need to change their musical sound. It just so happens that Blackpink's sound has always featured popular Western conventions, whereas BTS and Twice, in their efforts to adapt to the Western market, did have to subvert their sound and image in order to do so. I mean, they didn't have to, but that's what they did. Blackpink's image doesn't change as drastically when promoting in the West. They don't even really go out of their way to promote in the West by way of changing the kind of music they release, and thus, what they do doesn't damage the rapport they have with their core fan base in the process. Blackpink's image is not impacted by what they do to promote in the global marketplace. Well, there is the ice cream clause, however, where a lot of fans complain that Blackpink did lose the plot during this period. Ice Cream is an English demo song written by Victoria Monet, among others, and was originally recorded by Ariana Grande. It wasn't a song that was explicitly made for Blackpink only. It was underwhelming for a lot of K-pop fans, but still technically fits pretty neatly under the elusive pink side of Blackpink's concept. Ice Cream did see Blackpink face a lot of the same criticism as BTS and Twice, but not to the same extent due to Blackpink's inherent concept. It may not be a side to Blackpink that fans enjoy more than their traditional Girl Crush sound, but it is still technically a part of their concept that we've seen before with As If It's Your Last. In this way, I don't think the problem people have with Ice Cream is due to Westernization, but rather the problems people have with the song itself. Blackpink's core identity wasn't compromised in the process. NewJeans is another similar case to this, where they're not attempting to switch styles to promote internationally. It just so happens that the sound they're promoting with in Korea also resonates with international audiences. Intentionally so. We know that Adore shops out for music producers that aren't experienced with K-pop. In my opinion, the way that Blackpink and NewJeans go about global promotion is the safer and more reliable way that Westernization can occur successfully, by focusing on promoting in Korea but with a sound that is more focused towards international audiences. Again, a song like Alcohol Free completely solves this problem for Twice. They don't need to be translating their songs into English to promote in the West. Alcohol Free did end up having an English version released, but this was a bit of a special case for a remix album that was released almost 2 years after the Taste of Love album, so the English version of this song was not promoted with the actual release in the end. Alcohol Free as a project is unimpacted by the draining aspects of Westernization, and in that way becomes one of their strongest, quote, Westernized releases in recent time, in my opinion. This album, more than any other released in the last 3 years, would probably have the best chance of promoting in the West from the way that I see it. Does that make sense? Alcohol Free changes Twice's image drastically, but intentionally so. The end product gives you a pretty clear message as to what this project is about. Taste of Love adds to Twice's narrative in a meaningful way that the Ready to Be and With Youth albums do not. I guess the idea I'm trying to express here is that it's the project releases that are not marred by the English versions or English pre-release singles that seem to be a lot stronger in retrospect, a lot more capable of promoting in the West than the, quote, Westernized albums, oddly enough. By the end of Westernization, remixes and English versions and all, there's nothing that strongly connects Set Me Free and One Spark to the identity of Twice as a group. It doesn't continue their story, we're just kind of stuck at a narrative standstill. These songs are too ambiguous, trying too hard to be relatable in 2 languages, that they end up becoming grossly unrelatable universally. The songs are good, and I do defend them, they just don't add substance to Twice's discography by the end. There's no movement to these albums, and Twice's identity suffers as a result of it. That's what I believe is causing Westernization to be a problem for groups like Twice. It's like a parasite on their discography as it attaches itself to the standard Korean releases and drains the life from it. That's what I think about this. The problem isn't Westernization outright, but rather how Westernization behaves and influences a group's core identity. If we're getting to a point like we've seen with Twice and BTS, where Western promotions completely eclipse the group's identity for a lot of people, that's where it becomes kind of a problem. Not kind of, really a problem. Yeah, I think I've said everything I feel about this topic. I've spoken for quite a long time, way too long. If you watched this and have any thoughts or things you'd like to add to this, if you see it in a different way or disagree entirely, please definitely let me know. Thank you for watching, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time.